Hello and welcome to Chuck's Culture Channel, your YouTube source for lively conversations on the lively arts in St. Louis and beyond. And today it's coming to you from beyond time and space. That's because my guest in this episode is musician and playwright Josh Gross. He is, according to his own website bio, a known loudmouth and ukulele hooligan. Don't feed after midnight. His group, Puppeteers for Fears, is touring with their latest show, Cthulhu the Musical! Based on H.P. Lovecraft's 1928 short story, The Call of Cthulhu. It's about the seemingly immortal creature from another dimension determined to take over the world and plunge it into chaos by turning normal humans into mindless members of a death cult. No, not that one. This one. Okay, so here I am with Josh Gross, and the reason I'm talking to him is because as a certified member of the Church of the Subgenius, donations accepted, there is...
Excellent. Good for you, man.
There is no way I could pass up talking to someone who created something called Cthulhu the Musical, a puppet musical. So, tell people what they can expect from this when they come see it in St. Louis or anywhere.
Yeah. I always tell people that the best way to sort of like contextualize what we do is to imagine like if the Muppets did the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I feel like you kind of have to say something like that to give frame of reference because most people haven't really seen anything like what we do because there isn't really anything else like what we do. Because what we are is a fully dedicated puppet musical theater company that it kind of exclusively does horror and science fiction rock and roll musicals. And we do original material. We don't do, Avenue Q or anyone else's stuff. We only do original stuff. And what we're doing right now for this tour is our original, completely sincere, non-satirical adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu. And it's a full feature-length musical comedy adaptation of a story that is not remotely funny.
Not even a little bit. No,
not even a little bit. In fact, it was originally quite racist. So it took a lot of sort of massaging to get it into shape, but it works really well because he really brought a lot of sort of surrealism and sort of like questioning of reality into horror and horror fiction. And the thing about puppets is that they're real, but also we've all accepted that they're not real. So it ends up being kind of an ideal medium to explore something because it's this kind of like they exist in this place in between like an actor and a prop. So it's almost like live talking cartoons, but people buy in once they're like, all right, I know this isn't real, and yet I'm going to behave as if it is, and that's kind of the same sort of meta space that a lot of, Lovecraft's writing ended up sort of being in. So it works out really, really well. Also, the soundtrack is pretty rocking, so it's a lot of good sing-alongs.
Okay, very good. So I mean, what on earth the idea to do this? I'm really curious.
I grew up playing in rock and roll bands, and then when I went to college, I got into playwriting. And so it was just sort of, since I did these two different things, I thought it'd be really interesting to try to write a musical. But the problem I had was that when I'd see something like West Side Story, I thought it was really ridiculous because it's just like, it just seemed like there was no context. Like they're walking down the street and suddenly it's like this. It's like, come on, I didn't buy it. I felt like there needed to be like a context for it, or else it seems sort of preposterous. And then what happened was a friend of mine who ran a theater company that had done some of my work before. They said they were going to do a series of Halloween puppet shows, and they wanted to know if I would write something for this Halloween puppet show that they do, these sort of shorts. And I was like, oh, horror puppet musical. you put all three of those things together, it's so ridiculous. It just jumps the moon, shark and the moon and all of it, and no one will question any single piece of it. So then it was like, if the characters break into song, you're like, well, this is already completely ridiculous, so I'm not concerned about it seeming, weird. So kind of did that, and it just sort of snowballed from there. It started as one little short piece for a kind of like fun Halloween show, and then it was another one, then we did all three of those together, and then it just kind of turned into its own company over time.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And we just kind of get bigging, and then what we really wanted to do is we went from shorts, we went to writing features, and we start doing features. The idea was like, okay, well, let's kind of come up with like seasons like any other company would, and so we were just sort of brainstorming what are fun sort of things we could do where we could, kind of work with existing lore, or what are sort of concepts. And I was just, this is a true story. But I would just walk around like adding the words "the musical" to things to see how people would react. And it was like really like, oh, I'm gonna go to Taco Bell, the musical, just to see if it would react to people, because if they see that on a poster and they're like, I want to see that, okay, great. And what happened is I was in a public park with my girlfriend, and I just said the words Cthulhu the musical kind of in jest, and 3 people turned to me and said, where can I see that? I was like, you can see it here in 6 months in fall in October. Like, okay, great. And then, they walked off, and she turned to me, she's like, you have to write it. And I was like, I guess I do. So I began the process of, creating Cthulhu the musical.
Right. We should have the book of the Subgenius, the musical. That might be...
I have the book of the Subgenius, and I cannot, that would be even more of a mind warp to try to adapt. Boy, would the art be good.
Yes. That would be true. All right. Well, I mean, that's an in-joke that half the audience won't get, but who cares? Anyway, obviously, to find out obviously more about the show, people can look down here in the video description field, where I will have a link to your website and anything else relevant. And by looking behind you, you can get a little idea of what it looks like. But maybe you can tell people in more detail what exactly they can expect to see when they walk into the performance space for this.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a fairly immersive show. Like, we work in a puppet house, but it's a pretty big puppet house. There's actors inside of the puppet house, and it's big. It's about 12 feet wide.
Oh.
And then it has a screen that's attached to it. And so we use fully digital projected sets, so that we don't have to have like as many physical props, but that a lot of them are motion video and shadow puppetry. And so we have a team of 5 puppeteers who are doing this feature-length musical comedy show with fully interactive digital sets. And then off in the wings we have a full 3-piece rock and roll band doing kind of psych rock and a lot of interesting textures, big in sort of dabbles with metal, the places where it's appropriate, it's very Lovecraftian themes. So it becomes a pretty big, wild show, and sometimes the puppets will talk to the band and, back and forth. And because everyone's sort of doing the whole acknowledging the meta-ness of it, because it's on theme with the thing. So it's a pretty wild show. It's a lot of fun. It's the goal is always to, I think people think that when they think puppet show, they think like 2 people, like one person at the library go, or something like that. And no disrespect to that, but we want to do something that feels as big and propulsive and engaging and immersive as anything else you'd see, like in musical theater, Broadway, or whatever. And we really want to make the show seem bigger than it is. So everything is about how to make it seem to take up space on the stage, and to really make it a fully realized performance. And but it's also to do that with sort of in a weird lo-fi way. Like this was a very like punching above our weight class kind of project, and it's kind of grown. It's kind of, I think, this is not to toot my own horn too much, but I've gone to a couple of professional theater conferences where the other folks I'd meet there will be like, how do you do any of this without having like a $200 budget? I'm like, have a $200 budget, man. Find ways to make the small seem big more than just spending all your money on really expensive costumes. And puppets exist as almost like the cartoons from Roger Rabbit, where they're like they're not real, but we all believe that they're real because you're actually seeing it happen. And the real magic of puppetry is when people start talking to the puppet, forgetting that it's actually talking to someone's hand. And it's astounding to watch it happen. It's a really sophisticated art form. It's really great, and in a weird way, I'm gonna delve off into the meta, But in this age of, where everyone's really concerned about like AI and, how that's going to impact industries, we're doing this thing that is so aggressively analog that it's almost future proof. Because I mean, like, you could have the Chuck E. Cheese robots, I guess, do something like this, but it wouldn't at all be the same experience.
Yeah.
And not in the same way that it's like a human writer is different than an AI writer. Like, it's just a fundamentally different experience. Like, this is like you're literally in the room with it, and it's literally live. And our cast are very talented improv performers. So, like, half the times they toss the script all together, and they do some. It's almost like inspired by the original story, and it can vary wildly in length depending on how far off script they go, and it goes some places. It's really fun, and people just definitely haven't seen anything like it. Because, like I said, there's only a handful of like dedicated puppet companies. None of them are really doing it.
And you guys are in tech right now, which is why your image froze occasionally, because you don't have great Wi-Fi coverage. Do you want to have one of the puppeteers come in and say hello, or?
Yeah. Hold on. I'll go grab Alyssa. She can speak to this stuff. It'd just be great. Just give me.
Okay.
I'm Alyssa.
And what are you doing in this show? I mean,
in this show, I am a puppeteer. I am also the tour manager of the whole shebang. And I also did the shadow puppetry. And assistant directed. So I do a lot in this show and a lot in PFF in general.
Okay. Which puppets are you playing?
I'm playing Francine Thurston, one of the main professor of one of the main protagonists of the show.
He's trying to find out what the hell's going on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, she is.
So, what's it like performing in this? It sounds like a lot of chaotic fun to me.
Yes. Oh, it is. It's always a blast. It's always very painful on the body, actually. You really have to take care of yourself as a puppeteer. That's something that I think a lot of people don't realize. Even just if you just have your arm up in the air for about 2 minutes, it's gonna hurt. And if you add foam and fluff on top of that for a 2-hour plus show, it can be pretty painful. And there's a lot of backstage choreography we have to figure out as the puppeteers, because there are 5 of us behind a small stage area who just kind of crawling all over each other and silently communicating to each other when things are happening. And even when you're on stage, your body's off stage. The audience can't see you. So there's stuff going on up here, but there's also all these other things going on below you that you have to keep track of and be super. It's a very you have to be very aware and very, very focused on everything that's happening. You cannot get distracted. You can't like really take breaks. You kind of have to be fully in it, or else chaos is gonna happen.
And you can't see the audience either.
And we can't see the audience, so we have no idea what's going on. So that's all. And sometimes we can and can't see the band even, so we're kind of just trapped in this little box while we're bringing all of our skills out on our arms and with our voices.
Oh, that's great. And I'll let you get back to rehearsal, but I really appreciate the look behind the scenes at this, because I don't think a lot of people realize just how difficult that is.
Yeah, it's a very tough art form in general, in a lot of different ways, but I love it very much.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. Let's get Josh back in here.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay, so Josh, you're back, and I'm going to wrap this up. Just reminding people that if you're in St. Louis, you're going to see this July 16th. If you are somewhere else, look at the video description field down here to find out when Cthulhu, the musical, is going to be creeping through interdimensional space to your town. Thanks very much.
Oh, glad to be here, man. This has been this whole East Coast tour has been a dream long in the works, and it's really, really gratifying to see folks like yourself be interested in it, because what we do is very weird, and it could very easily just fall completely flat, and we continue to be eternally grateful that it finds an audience.
Yeah. So, well, I suspect St. Louis will welcome you, and so will everybody else, I hope. So again, thanks for coming, Josh, and everybody else out there. Look, tell your friends about Chuck's Culture Channel, because Otherwise, I have no way to reach people. I don't take ads and all that stuff. So, please spread the word. And if Cthulhu the Musical is coming to your town, check it out. Bye-bye.